Hi guys, so in a previous video me and Pontus went through and looked into what we thought would be commanders that were benefiting from the bans of Mana Crypt, Dockside and Jeweled Lotus, and of course Nadu, but also commanders that potentially got worse from that. And this is the theoretical verdict that we potentially reached with our beliefs. So for example, here we have Yuriko got better, we believe Tayam got better, we believe Rogsai got better, Ursa got better, Kinnan got better, Venota got better, Sisei no effect, Blue Farm no effect, Magda got worse, Obnixilis we also believe got worse, Etali we also believed actually got dead, as well as Godo basically being dead. And Tymna Thrasius we placed in no effect. But here's the thing, we were wrong on some of these at the very least. Now a lot of you know that I do calculate data from various tournaments, looking into decklists and what cards actually perform good. And there is a very cool thing that we can do here. For those that are new to this kind of stuff, we are currently looking into Mana Crypt inside Godo as the commander, and here is a pie chart of the inclusion rate. Now you have something like 92.2% of the decks, so you can see here a total of 102 decks, and then you have 94 that place it, which means that it's a very high inclusion rate. Most people do include Mana Crypt inside the deck list, because of the very simple reason that it is auto-included. Now normally when we do these, we're seeing if a card is good by including it or not recommended by including it and such. But Mana Crypt being an auto-include, we actually have a separation of the old post-ban and pre-ban. So we have two different groups with post-ban and pre-ban. But now I'm going to give you a little bit of a headache. So you see, the average win rate up there is 25.97 when you are including Mana Crypt, while this win rate down here is 25.64, which is lower. It's a difference of 0.33, which means that this is the new banned list, the new metagame, and this is the old. In other words, Mana Crypt have decreased Godo's performance because the 7.8 of the percent that included in the new have been dropping their win rate a tiny micromillimeter. But honestly, not that much. It's not dead. However, I would like to point out that the sample size of this one is actually quite small. Now this is not an evaluation of how good Mana Crypt actually is inside Godo. It is more of how did Godo benefit or lose from Mana Crypt being banned, and Dockside by the way, because Dockside as well as Mana Crypt is also an auto-include. In other words, did Godo benefit or lose from having Mana Crypt being banned? And the answer is it lost. The old win rate is better compared to the newer win rate. But what about other commanders? Well, we're gonna go through a few of them, because we can't go through all of them. Simply, the sample size are really small. For example, here you have Ursa. The difference here are total decks 262, and the total decks that have included this is 240. So the old metagame contained 240. So it's 22 new Ursa games or tournament entries with Ursa that have contributed to this. So we can't really say much. So far, it doesn't seem that banning Mana Crypt have had an impact in Ursa in general. And banning Dockside. We're actually looking at both Dockside and Mana Crypt at the same time here. We're only actually using this to make a trick of separating the old ban list and the new ban list. We also don't have that much information on Etali, but as you can see here, it looks like Etali benefited more from having Mana Crypt legal. Venota is also a theoretical commander that is interesting with the ban, and the sample size is very small, the impact is very small, you only see a difference of 0.05, but it is in red, so that means that having Mana Crypt banned might be good for Venota, but we can't really say that in my opinion. Tyam is also a big speculator of being happy with the ban, and as you can see here, the old win rate is in red and the newer win rate is in a higher value. The difference is but on 0.17, but the sample size is still very small. The sample size for Tivit is a little bit higher, but the impact change is nothing, so the outcome for Tivit basically no real change. Surprisingly, the sample size for Nayela is also not that high, or well, we have a lot of data on Nayela in general on the old meta, but we haven't really gathered enough tournament entries on Nayela on the new banned list, so to say. So I don't think that the answer here is that strong, but it looks like banning Mana Crypt is an improvement for Nayela. You could frame it like this: Nayela benefits from having Mana Crypt and Dockside and Jeweled Lotus banned. cEDH, on the other hand, is not benefiting from this. Now the sample size is starting to be a little bit higher. We're starting to reach something like, what is that? 1560 minus 1473. That is 87 tournament entries with cEDH without having Dockside Extortionist or Mana Crypt in it. So you could say that cEDH got worse. She benefited more from having access to Dockside, obviously. But the change isn't like that big. It's a difference of 0.11%, so pretty much nothing. Kinnan have definitely benefited apparently from having Dockside and Mana Crypt banned, as you can see here. The sample size for Corvold is extremely small, so we can't really say much, but it's looking like an indication of not being happy with it, obviously. And then we get to the most popular commander inside the entire format. We have a total of 3,250 tournament entries with Tymna and Chrom. And out of that, we have 3,115 that have in the older meta. So if we do compare that, we have 135 tournament entries with Tymna and Chrom in the new banned list, where they can't include Dockside or Mana Crypt. And as you can see, they are like, there's no change whatsoever, like no effect basically. They didn't get worse, or well, they slightly got better, you could say, but they weren't really affected by Dockside being banned. That takes us to a very big impact. So far we haven't really seen that big of a change, but suddenly we do. However, in a very strange opposite direction. So if you remember, we did place Yuriko got better. A lot better. Like, we believe that she would be the best benefiter from this entirely. However, as you can see here, it is the opposite. Now we have a total of 642 tournament entries, and 508 of those are when Dockside and Mana Crypt are legal. So the increase is like 20.9% that didn't include Mana Crypt. And as you can see here, the win rate have gone worse, because the old win rate is better compared to the newer win rate. So strangely, Yuriko might have benefited in the older metagame where Dockside and Mana Crypt were legal. I have absolutely no answer to why, but that is very fascinating. If you have a good answer to why Yuriko have been performing a little bit worse in tournaments these days, feel free to drop a comment below. However, I do have a small speculation. If we do take a look at this one, you see Rogsai and Celia's Seeker Adept, they also have a pretty high tournament entry. So you have 121 tournament entries with these two commanders in the new ban list when they can't include Mana Crypt or Dockside. And as you can see, they have benefited slightly from it, or basically not being affected at all. So as you can see here, we have Blue Farm Tymna Chrom being a very strong deck, not really affected one bit. Rogsai not really affected one bit. Yuriko have always struggled. Like, Yuriko is a mid-range kind of control-y deck, and that is not a benefiting strategy currently in the format. I've showcased videos that is indicating that cutting counterspells and cutting stacks cards is a good pathway forward to increase your win rate in general. And then saying simply that mid-range and control decks aren't really recommended, but commander decks like Tymna and Krom and Rogsai, who are more on the turbo plan, functions really well, and they weren't really affected by the bans, which indicates that Yuriko is like still lagging behind, even though it is a theoretical upgrade of banning Mana Crypt and Dockside. The format and the meta game doesn't really benefit for Yuriko, and that kind of weakness that she has just became potentially stronger. But there's one more commander we have to take a look at, and this one is very interesting, and it's definitely something of a potential comeback. So we have 453 tournament entries of the old metagame when Mana Crypt and Dockside were legal, and according to my calculator, that 17.3% is 95 new tournament entries where Mana Crypt and Dockside are banned, not legal. And as you can see here, the difference between the old win rate and the new win rate is very close to 1%. So a big verdict is that Tymna and Thrasius actually got better. So Tymna Thrasius right here should take Yuriko's place, and Yuriko should go somewhere around down here into got worse. And to me that is a bit fascinating. Now I can't answer truly why Tymna and Thrasius have actually gotten this much better with the bans, and if you've been playing Tymna and Thrasius in the current tournaments without Dockside and Mana Crypt being legal in those tournaments, feel free to explain why you think Tymna and Thrasius, the TNT pair, have been doing good. My personal speculation is that they still have some decent combos going for them, like Adnas, Thassa's Oracle and such, and Dockside being banned doesn't really affect them one bit. And yeah, in the end, they should be considered a very strong commander pair, kinda in general. But we'll see. In any case, thank you for watching. The big takeaway here is that, well, first of all, it's very hard to actually sit and predict how things are going to go, because I think everyone were kinda on point on Yuriko getting better, and Tymna Thrasius wouldn't have received this much of an impact. So yeah, but data tells the truth, but data doesn't explain things on why it happened. Regardless, see you in the next one.